Yeah, I'm looking at it now, Jeff. I just realized I'm just trying to make sure I got everything correct. Hold the phone.
Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Good morning. It's October 9th. We hope you're having a great week so far. So our agenda today, we're going to start out with success stories. I know we have several landings to announce. Then we'll go to 30-second introductions. We'll have everybody put in their information so we can then share and be able to try to help each other out this weekend and, see who's looking for what companies. We'll then go to committee reports, workshop, job fairs, a pick career interview success workshop, and the career tip of the week. And then we'll hear from our speaker at the main event. So for those people who are on Zoom, we ask that you make sure that your name is appearing on there. I see there's a Daniel. Just want to make sure you got a full first and last name. To do that, just hover over the little camera microphone on your participant box and click on rename, and be sure to put in your full name. That way I can make sure we get your name added to the roster. Otherwise, I have no way to really know who Daniel is. It makes it very difficult for me to do that. I also will go through the chat box and I will enter all that information into the onto the roster also. For those people, if you have questions throughout the morning, please use the chat box on Zoom. Please just open up the chat box. And for those people on Facebook, just enter your questions into the comment field, and we will be sure to, I am monitoring that feed, and I'll be sure to get that checked off and be sure to ask those questions as they pop up. We ask that you go to the speaker view. For some of you, you all may have gotten the new version of Zoom. I know my laptop voted to the new version of Zoom, but on my PC, I'm still running the old version. So, or it hasn't updated yet. So this is what the speaker view looks like. We ask that you go to speaker view in the lower left-hand corner. So you see the speaker on the right-hand side and the PowerPoint slides on the left-hand slide. And right in the middle, you see that little white line where the red arrow is. If you click on that, you can, if you're on a PC or Mac, you can pull that back and forth and make the speaker bigger or smaller, depending on whatever ratio works on your PC or Mac. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. In 2008, I started Career DFW to help people in the DFW area with their job search by trying to put everything in one place to make it easy for you to find other networking groups and other resources. In 2012, I launched CareerUSA.org to help people outside the DFW area. Also in 2012, I wrote the book, What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. Well, we'd like to start the meeting off with good news, and I think Heidi, I think you're online. You'd like to tell us your success story.
Yes, thank you. I was in transition for probably over 3 months, and probably longer than that, but wasn't seriously looking. And during the summer, or right before the pandemic hit, I wanted to help a list of 20 people to find a job, kind of that was in my situation also, and kind of grew my network. And through networking, who you know, and Mark McDonald with a pit crew, and was kind of just paying it forward that way. I actually had someone in my network reach out to me and said, hey, do you know of anyone? And she stopped like mid-sentence and then just stared at me and she goes, would you be interested in, and I was like, yeah, of course I'd be interested to work for you, because Mallory Heron, the founder and lead consultant of Heron HR, is actually a very awesome person. So anyways, yes, it was a fabulous way to connect. But a part of that was growing and networking with other people in transition and getting the word out there. So I wanted to come here and share, and just also say we are looking for an IT manager for one of our clients. So if you know anyone, please send them our way. Thank you.
Very good. Well, congratulations. Thank you for the good news. Do we have anybody else online? I've heard of a few. I've got 5 other people who I will mention if none of them are online right now. Anybody else land online that'd like to tell us about landing? Nope. Okay. Well, let me go ahead here. Susan Neese. Oops. Let's see here. Susan Neese landed as a practice administrator for a specialty dermatology practice. Roy Marino is a contract engineer position with Abbott Laboratories. David Sideway landed a job at Pegasus System as a senior manager of global business continuity and cyber resiliency. Kathy Atwell landed a job in human resources, and Andy Weiss landed a job, product group senior manager at the internal ID department at Moss Adams LLP. So those are 6 people who I've heard from this past week. At the beginning of every month, when we haven't heard from anybody for 90 days, I send an email out, and I sent out like 30 emails. And so those people, those 6 people back did respond to me that they had landed in the last 30 days or in the last couple months. So congratulations to those people. And that takes our count so far this year to 69 people. So Andy would be number 69 for landings from the North Dallas Focus Group. So congratulations to all. Anybody else? One last chance before we move on.
Yes, Jeff, I have someone.
Okay. Yes, Mark.
So Ana Blanco landed at T-Mobile as a technical project manager. And so this is interesting because this was a, what's it called? A rehire? Well, she worked through a recruiting agency called Reach, R-E-A-C-H, in little letters, and then capital H-I-R-E, Reach Hire. So it's the word I was looking for is it's a returnship program. And Reach Hire has several companies that they represent, and T-Mobile was one of them. And so this is specifically for people who've been out of the workplace for a couple of years. They offer training if you need additional training to qualify for the position or to be ready for the position that they place you in. You interview with the company, so the company selects you, but Reach Hire is a recruiter that sponsors you. And so if that's your situation, get in contact with me and I'll get you in contact with Anna, and I'm sure she can share with you how it worked out for her. Congratulations to Anna.
Great, great. Congratulations. Anybody else? Is that it? All right, let's move on. Okay, so what we want you to do now is hopefully, and a lot of people have already done this, but please open up your participant box. And we'd like you to put in your name, your phone number, your email address, position you're looking for, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. And that way all your information will be together. I'll copy all that information and I will make sure we get it put out on the email that goes out this afternoon. For those people on Facebook, if you put your information, excuse me, into the comment box, I will then make sure I will delete your information so it's not sitting out there in the comment fields. As soon as the meeting's over, I'll copy that information over and then I will delete your personal information in the comment field. So we ask that you do that. So I'll give you 60 seconds to get that done. hopefully everybody's had an opportunity.
I'll take new job for 120,000.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very funny. Okay. All right. So very good. So hopefully everyone's had an opportunity. Good. I see people being in on Facebook. Thank you very, very much. All right. Oh, here we go. Let's go slide. All right. So it's time for job fairs, career fairs, training, workshops, all that fun stuff. Eldon, good morning.
It is that time again. Happy Friday, everybody. The information I'm about to convey to you comes from the website careerdfw.org. And if you're not familiar with that website, I'd be very surprised. I cover the items fairly quickly. If you hear something that interests you, go to the calendar, either one of those two tabs, career and job fairs, or special workshops or events. Find the event, click on it, and there's usually more information right there under your nose. All right, this week's career and job fairs. Samaritan's Purse Operation Christmas Child Job Fair will be held Saturday, October 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At the Southwest Ministry Center. That's at 1201 Creekview Drive in Coppell. And there is a link in the calendar to go find out more about that. Virtual hiring fair days will be held Thursday, October 15th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And there's a link for that one. This week's special workshops or events. Online at this time, the Who You Know workshop will be held Monday, October 12th from 1 to 3 p.m. There's a Zoom link online for that. That meeting is hosted by Foster Williams. And if you don't know Foster, I would get to know Foster Williams. There is a workshop to find out more about Career DFW and Career USA and how to use them. That will be held 7:30 to 9:30 on Tuesday, October 13th. There's a link for that one. The online Frisco Career Transition Workshop will also be held Tuesday, October 13th from 3 to 4 p.m. This week's session is Networking and Building Relationships, and that will be hosted by Jeff Morris. Continuing on, online interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. with Mark McDonald and Walt Glass, Wednesday, October 14th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. This week's session will be target companies, informational interviews, and networking. What is important to you in your next position? Networking your way to the best position for you. And if you haven't attended one of these by Walt or Mark, I strongly urge you to do so. And there's a Zoom link for it on the calendar. Online Resume Thursdays, the online session is hosted by Carol Brickell, Certified Professional Career Coach. It'll be Thursday, October 15th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And there is a Zoom link for that. Also online, Conducting Your Optimal Search with speaker Rob Friedlander will be, and he's from the Fluor Corporation, and that'll be hosted by St. Andrew's Career Care, Thursday, October 15th from 2 to 4 p.m. And of course, there is a Zoom link for that one. And finally, on October 16th, there'll be the third Friday Internet of Things Special Interest Group Breakfast. You can find out more about that by going to the calendar. There's a Zoom link for that, and it'll tell you about who the speaker is going to be. And if you're interested in the Internet of Things, that's really a very good thing to attend because there's a lot of folks that participate in that and you can network with. And that's it for this week.
Great, Eldon. Thank you very, very much. All righty, let's see here. For anybody who is, if you're looking to try to find other networking events and other things that are going on, I've added a title bar at the very, very top. One of the other calendars that's on there is the webinar, teleseminar, radio, and TV shows. If you click on that headline right there, you can get to it a lot quicker. And this is what it looks like. All these events are online or on the radio, so you're welcome to find out those events. And there should be Zoom links and everything for those there. If you know somebody who just lost their job, I understand another 840,000 people applied for unemployment this past week. If you know somebody who's brand new in the job search and they don't know what to do, tell them to click right here. I just lost my job. What do I do now? And up will come one page that's got several different articles and links on it that will help you prepare. It's got a checklist. It's got all sorts of great information to help you in your job search and things you can do. The practice interview team. Good morning, Mark.
Well, good morning, everybody. Took me a second there to get the microphone to turn on. So let me tell you a little bit more about Anna, who landed at T-Mobile through the Reach Hire program. And so she practiced twice for her very first interview for this opportunity, and that's what I want to encourage you to do as well. Practice early and practice often. It's almost assured that you haven't spent enough time practicing and probably spent too much time on your resume and LinkedIn and surfing the web for job positions. So come and practice. Even if you don't have an opportunity at hand, we'll help you become a more effective and more confident interviewer or candidate, excuse me. So how the PIT Crew works is we meet virtually now. We hold Zoom practice interviews with 3 interviewers and you. We can do those any day of the week now because they're virtual. So as soon as you send your information in, I'll go to work setting it up and organizing it. And it usually takes a couple of days to get that done, 2 to 3 days. So if you include with your information that you send in the times that you're available on +2 days and +3 days, and we'll work around your schedule. And that information that the PIT Crew needs is your resume, and a job description, because we provide a very personalized and customized interview experience based on the jobs that you're looking for, the ones that you're interested in, the things that look good to you. So if you go and find your dream job online, who knows, it may be in Baltimore, but you're never going to move to Baltimore. But the point is, it's got a great job description and you'd like to practice against that, send it in, and we'll give you an opportunity to convince the group of hiring managers that you're the right person for that job. And it takes about 45 minutes, and afterwards you get some feedback on what you could do to be more effective. You also get a video of the interview so you can see how you look if you're working the camera, just in general how things look as the interview goes on, and also your background. So it's very valuable experience. And the way you get involved is you send that information when you're ready. Send your information to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. The crew's been very busy this week. I think interview activity is going up again. I don't know that it really slowed down. Right in August it did, but since Labor Day, it's been pretty busy. And then just this week, there's been quite a bit of an uptick even from that. So let me also encourage you to link in with me. There's my LinkedIn profile. And so my background is in high-tech electronics and almost all of it in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So my network is almost exclusively Dallas-Fort Worth people. So just send me a brief note. I'll link in with you, and then my network becomes your second-degree connections. We have a webinar, as Eldon mentioned, and that's on Wednesday afternoons coming up. I'll mention it one more time. Walt and I do the webinar, and this week is really, we have finished up how to prepare for an interview and how to interview effectively. Now we're going into some special topics, and this next week is not about interviewing, it's really about networking, but that's very tightly connected to being prepared to interview. So we're going to talk about networking and target companies and things like that. And then finally, landings. Heidi just announced her landing. She was a PIT Crew volunteer, so that means she gave the interviews. And so I'm looking to add some more volunteers to the PIT Crew. And the only requirement is that you've been a hiring manager as part of your professional responsibilities. I had one guy contact me. He's joined the PIT Crew. He said, well, I've only hired 25 people. Okay, that's good enough. That's good enough. And, or even less, if you've hired people, you're qualified to be on the PIT Crew. And we like to have hiring managers, provide the interviews and give the feedback because they've done it professionally. Contact me at the email there, dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how to get involved. Thanks.
Great. Also, Burl asked, does the PIT Crew have a website? No, the PIT Crew does not have a website, but I did put a handout in the chat box, the PIT Crew information. It's a one-page handout flyer, so that if you'd like, you can download that and you can copy that out of the chat right now. Walt, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Walt Glass here. I am an interview success coach. Now, you have to be certified in everything these days, left-handed wrench puller or whatever it might be. Well, there's no interview certifications out there. So I developed my own program, and It's pretty expensive to pass, and it took me 3 times, but nonetheless, I am now an interview success coach certified person. So if you'd like to be a success coach in interview, I have a mentor program. It's $1,000 an hour, and it's easy for you to take. I have simplified it very much. So it only takes you about 5 or 6 minutes. So it's pretty cheap. Okay. So the interview success workshop, what is all that about? Well, it's learning without squirming. I mean, it's a workshop after all. And we start at the bottom of the pyramid, which is the fundamentals of interviewing. What are we selling? How do we sell it? How do we differentiate ourselves from those other candidates? We have to cover the basic types of questions and the strategies, approaches, structures, options to how we might approach an answer, depending on where you are in the process, who you're talking to, and what the particular question and the motive behind that question is. So we'll talk about those things. Only do 2 participants a session. You also get a video of your interview as well. You get some handouts where the video goes over some of the information that we talk about as well. So that can be used for future, you know, jobs aren't lasting as long as they used to. So I schedule most Tuesdays on Zoom, but you must be registered to attend. So look me up on LinkedIn. My About section gives you all the information about the workshop. It gives you the address for sending me my Yahoo address is my reserved email address for the workshop. So what I'd like you to do is do this. If you're really interested in finding out how and why and what you can do to differentiate yourselves from those other candidates, I'm the person you want to talk to. Sign up today, and it's free. Doesn't cost you a thing. Double your money back if you're not satisfied. The poems are out of business today.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I have to go find your slide. I don't know what happened to your slide for Facebook. I mean, for LinkedIn. So I'll have to get that and add that for next week.
Oh, how will we live? How will we live?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't know what happened to it.
Oh, by the
Okay,
way, I would like to say this. I am going to take a break, and so you ought to sign up pretty quick. I'm going to take a couple weeks or so off. That means I'm gonna drive around the block. I'm gonna come in through the front door, and I move to the other bedroom. I've heard the food here isn't very good, so I'm a little concerned about that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay. Time for the career tip of the week. Good morning, Sue Ellen.
Good morning, everyone. Today's tip is how to prepare for and land a job at a virtual career fair. It's written by Nicole Dienst and Kelsey Johnson with CNBC. Nothing political, though. With coronavirus infections still surging across the U.S., many companies are turning to virtual career fairs as a hiring strategy. While not new, the concept has been gaining ground since the pandemic began. Hundreds of job fairs have been taking place globally, with companies both large and small joining in. Virtual job fairs take place at a designated time and are similar to a webinar. Recruiters and job seekers meet in a virtual space via chat rooms, teleconferencing, webcasts, and/or email to exchange information about job postings. Rather than just reviewing resumes, hiring managers will be able to meet candidates face-to-face, interview them, and make offers right on the spot. Virtual hiring takes the hassle, time, and expense out of attending a traditional job fair and helps recruiters and employers interact with potential employees from all over the world and a variety of disciplines. Employment platform Career Builder has been hosting virtual career fairs for universities and companies since 2013. And they have found that since the onset of the pandemic, more companies are embracing virtual career fairs as a primary resource rather than a supplementary or creative resource. It's become more the norm and the necessity. Today, the most active sectors in this arena are financial services, healthcare, nonprofits, internet, and software. FlexJobs, a virtual recruiting platform, primarily caters to filling more experienced and managerial positions. While these roles often require additional experience and technical skills, Attending virtual job fairs can be advantageous for people looking to pivot industries or get one-on-one time with a recruiter for a role they may be passionate about. For dedicated client virtual fairs, career platforms can provide the software, marketing, and even pre-screening of candidates so that recruiters from a company can connect with a variety of qualified candidates for their specific openings. Attendees provide their resumes and contact information at registration, and after joining a lobby and being presented with options, they can either initiate one-on-one conversations with recruiters or join group conversations. For career fairs with multiple employers, career platforms use intricate software to replicate a ballroom with Zoom rooms and chat boxes with recruiters for each company. Employers are able to facilitate interactive panels and discussions to share more about the positions that they are hiring for, as well as more about their company culture and values. Attendees may curate their schedule in advance or visit multiple rooms of their choosing throughout the day, asking questions in the group setting or initiating a one-to-one text or audio chat with a recruiter. According to FlexJobs, recruiters often expect the attendee to initiate any follow-up after the fair. So when you're applying for the job after the fair, make sure to mention it in your cover letter which recruiter you talk to. It's good to reiterate that you're already active and are seeking out this company in particular. There are also encouragement to attendees to connect with recruiters on LinkedIn and include a message about their conversations at the fair. You have given yourself an advantage if you're using the info you learned at the fair and the recruiter connection. Here's some tips to prepare for the virtual job fair. Virtual job fairs are much different from the in-person experience, so preparation is vital to success and to build a lasting impression on a recruiter or employer. Those who can adapt will have a great advantage. Here are some key ways to put your best foot forward and maximize your time with a recruiter. Number one, do your research. You've heard that before. One of the most common pieces of advice from recruiters and career services utilizing virtual career fairs is to do your research. Candidates should cross-reference their research with company reviews on platforms like Handshake to inform smart questions for recruiters. Think of questions that would allow you to get deeper knowledge about the culture of the organization, what it means to be able to move up in that organization, or what it is you would be able to contribute or learn in that organization. Number two, sharpen your communication skills. The best way a candidate can stand out is good communication skills and good grammar skills. In a virtual world, you don't want to write like you're texting a friend. You still want to have that professionalism. Number three, don't give up. To make the most of this opportunity, put yourself out there and overcome any apprehensions you may have about virtual recruiting. The key to finding a job or an internship is to keep trying. Just say yes to a virtual event or go to LinkedIn to make those connections yourself. Having the confidence to do that, even if you feel awkward, is integral to landing a job no matter where you are. There are some benefits of virtual recruiting. Despite lacking in-person interaction, virtual career fairs and virtual recruiting still offer job seekers an opportunity to connect with employers and form a lasting connection. In fact, experts predict that even after the pandemic, there will be no rush to revert to traditional in-person job fairs. According to a survey conducted in early April that polled 112 employers, 80% of recruiting will remain virtual for the foreseeable future. And 60% say that even if travel were safe, they would still decrease their on-site presence. Here are some of the ways online job fairs provide benefits for candidates across different experience levels employers, and schools. Number one, it engages more candidates. While virtual career fairs existed prior to the pandemic, the coronavirus has been a critical catalyst for accelerating the use of virtual recruiting as a primary resource for employers. It accelerated people's openness to being willing to think about a virtual strategy and to use the tools that will allow them to engage more qualified people across more areas. Number two, it saves time and money. With career fairs now online, employers no longer need to spend days setting up an event. Travel expenses for both the candidates and recruiters are eliminated, and there are no geographic boundaries. In addition, recruiters are able to participate across multiple shifts throughout the day, allowing them to resume normal work operations before and after. And number three, it opens up more conversations. In addition, the variety of available methods for interacting with recruiters can effectively cater to the different needs and preferences of candidates, allowing them to feel more comfortable in the recruiting process. In this sort of isolated time, virtual events generally do give that interaction and space to speak freely to the company. These sort of events are a way to put a face to a name and make a connection so that you can move forward in that process later. The nature of virtual recruiting also permits candidates to seek multiple job openings and interact with a number of employers without the barriers of travel and time waits. It can even be more effective for the recruiter because they are able to carry 5 to 10 conversations with candidates at the same time in different chat rooms. Same goes for job seekers. They are able to vet out more opportunities or attend 3 or 4 virtual career fairs in a single day instead of using the old way and going in person. It's a more efficient type of process. For job seekers of greater experience looking to switch roles, careers, or industries, these virtual career fairs can be a great opportunity to learn more about the skills needed in different roles and highlight one's transferable skills to the recruiter. And number 4, it offers a better avenue for sourcing diverse candidates. One of the greatest benefits of virtual recruiting is the ability to source diverse candidates from various backgrounds, locations, experiences, and diversity is integral to the services they provide. The job is not just helping women find jobs, but also working with clients to identify where they may need pushing in this area. Trappy, T-R-A-P-P-E-Y, is a company which was originally created to get more diverse talent into companies' pipelines. It has also incorporated training and educational tools for candidates entering, re-entering, and even pivoting within the workforce, as well as a combination of on-site and virtual recruiting events for women of all skill levels and backgrounds. So, in summary, with coronavirus infections still surging across the US, many companies are turning to virtual career fairs as a hiring strategy. Career experts claim 80% of recruiting will be virtual for the foreseeable future. Studying up on the participants' company's background and demonstrating excellent communication skills are ideal traits for landing a job virtually. And you have the benefit of connecting with more companies in a short time without leaving home. So good luck at your career fair.
Sue Ellen, thank you. I know it's a really long one. And I think Sue Ellen will not be with us next week. So if somebody would like to volunteer to read the career tip of the week, please send me an email. Please let me know because you do not want me reading the tip of the week next week. So we need a volunteer. Otherwise, I will have to draft somebody if nobody wants to volunteer. Okay. So coming up here, well, we're just past 10 o'clock already. So coming up in just a couple minutes, identifying and leveraging competencies to secure a job offer with Mitch Byers. We'll have him in just a second. Coming up next Friday, Fireproofing your future, protecting yourself against getting burned in your job search by taking the wrong job. Should be an interesting topic. In 2 weeks, transitions, making sense of life's changes. And then in the last Friday of the month, we have 5 Fridays this month. Walt Glass will be doing a presentation on informational interviewing. So it's time for our speaker today. So our speaker this morning, his name is Mitch Byers. His name may sound familiar for those who've been unemployed, over the last 8 or 10 years. He has spoken to numerous groups, numerous times. He's spoken to our group several times over the years. After 9 years in third-party IT recruiting, Mitch went off into the deep end, and he's transitioned into human resources and quickly took on leading talent management, cultural initiatives, and all things HR. Along his journey, he recognized the need for real strategies, a template for a map, if you will, for employees and managers to use as they face everyday challenges. How to understand their strengths, how to leverage those in the professional environment, and how to leverage those in the professional environment. He's developed a competency system, part of which he'll explore with us this morning. Mitch is a published author. The book is called Interview RX. It's an easy to follow guide for those in job transition. Over the last 10 years, he's been a speaker at the Fort Worth HR Southwest Conference multiple years, and he's delivered training software, medical packaging, and education to medical packaging and educational organizations. He's got an MBA from Texas A&M Commerce. He's a graduate from the Dallas-based Stage and Leadership Academy, an intense 52-week leadership program. And I really, appreciate Mitch. He reached out to me going, he's ready to get back in the speaking world again after after not doing it for a little while. So Mitch, thank you very much. And please take it away.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started here. Let's see. All right. Okay, can everyone see the screen okay?
Yep, you're good to go.
Fantastic. I want to say thank you, Jeff. It's nice to see that you're continuing to contribute to the group and to the community. And I don't know how many decades you've done this, but thank you and others for supporting the Dallas Career Focus Group and the North Dallas group as well. It's just fantastic to support each other during a time of job transition. And for most of us, that's kind of a scary moment. So we're going to be talking about competency. And that's kind of a long word. And I typically, and maybe I can just open it up here, is when you hear that word competency, what first comes to mind? How would you define competency? And I'll open it up to the group.
Competent.
That you're able to do the job properly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think of the word equipping. So you're equipped, right? You have the tools necessary and the ability to use those tools.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to take you through a number of, I'll call them strategic programs, a number of, I think, easy to follow concepts. And I'm going to, and I think it was Mark that used this word, learning without squirming. So hopefully there won't be too much squirming this morning. And the roadmap is, I want to first of all share with you what the key takeaways are. We're going to do a formal definition of competency just so that we have a kind of a base knowledge off which to work. Then we're going to talk about competency models, flow through to what does an integrated competency system look like, and then once we go through that information, what are some tips on implementing this particular concept, and certainly we can open it up for Q&A at the end. All right, so that's our roadmap. So the key takeaways, we're going to be talking about competency, specifically what is it, and then within that, a competency model, which is simply a group of competencies from the larger list, and then how to use the competency specifically and immediately for both resume review and interview preparation. I know you're getting a lot of information about both of these, and I'm hoping that this will just be like a new layer that you can add to the skills that you're already beginning to assimilate. We also I want to show you kind of the bigger picture of competencies, how yes, you can use it immediately, but also how you can use it as you move forward and once you land the job, and then your ROI, why on earth would I, as much information as you're receiving, why would I want to use kind of this competency system to move forward? And so I'll try to inspire you to take it and run with it. So competency defined. There's a couple of definitions I want to leave you with. The first is by Sherm, and they talk about knowledge, skills, and abilities, which is part of it, but it's not just our knowledge, skills, and abilities, it's also personal attributes. And then when you combine those together, we're actually linking those with enhanced performance. And these end up being the critical success factors that hiring managers are looking for and that organizations are looking for. So I think it would behoove us to kind of understand what are our own competencies, and then what are the competencies that are required for the specific position that we're looking to land. And what if we could mirror that in the interview process? And we'll see how to do that. Workitect, which is a absolutely wonderful resource for competencies, they say that a competency is a personal characteristic, and they use this term skill, knowledge, trait, motive, and it drives behavior leading to outstanding performance. And then finally, a professor of organizational behavior defines it as an underlying characteristic of an employee which results in effective and/or superior performance. What I'd like to leave you with is just a real simple definition. As you think about competency, think of it as a set of behaviors that drives performance, superior performance. And this is what every hiring manager, every hiring team is looking for as they sit across from you. Are you the one that is bringing to the table a superior performance? And can they see that like crystal clear? And we'll be looking to see how you can develop career stories to engage them to include your competency model, if you will. All right, so that's our first baseline, is to first of all formally describe and define what a competency is. Simply a set of behaviors that drives superior performance. So why do we want to go to this trouble? Why do we want to even engage and think about competencies? It's because these are the habits that are differentiating factors. So what do we mean by that? These differentiating factors are quite valuable, and on average, just average, they produce a 40% increase in workplace value. So the organizations that can, 1, identify, 2, screen against, 3, track and measure, create metrics around it, they're going to really kind of pull away, if you will, and be more competitive in the marketplace. So many organizations are looking at competencies, models, and they're beginning to sprinkle those into the job descriptions and certainly into the interview process, especially if you're a larger company. But even smaller companies, you should be experiencing these behavioral interviews because companies have this strong motivation to identify what are those habits that lead to superior performance, and can we identify those during the interview process. So I wanted to, now that we have a general understanding of competencies and why they're so important in the workplace, I wanted to introduce 3 buckets, if you will, or 3 groups of competencies. And then we'll look at the whole model, if you will, or the whole list. And then we're going to go through a kind of a self-paced exercise as a group. So one of the groups, one of the big buckets is people, and under people specifically leading others, and then the communication and influence. Under business, we have things that we all do every day, which is preventing and solving problems. There's actually a difference there. Solving problems is a specific skill. Prevention of problems is yet a different mindset. But those are together, and then achieving results, and then there's self-management. All right, so these are the 3 buckets. Now let me, if I can, expand out and under leading others, and I'll just kind of let you begin to sort through those. And as you begin to look at the competencies themselves, such as managing performance and fostering teamwork and cooperation, empowering others, make a mental note of which ones you feel kind of rise to the top as you self-reflect. And so what we're going to do in just a moment is we're going to take a moment and create our own competency model. Okay, so these are the leading others and communication. And the next group will be the business ones, preventing and solving problems, achieving results. And again, I'm going to give you just a second to begin to review. And again, mentally kind of note which ones are jumping off the page, which ones reflect your core. And then the final group is the self-management. All right, so here we have around 30 competencies. What I'd like for you to do, I'm going to give you just maybe 30, 45 seconds to do this, is just jot down, if you will, try to sort it down to your top six. That's to say that when you bundle these 6 together, this is who makes you who you are. This is like your value proposition to the marketplace. So I'm going to give you just a second here, and then we're going to come back and move forward. So we're looking for your top 6 competencies. Okay, go. And there's no right, there's no wrong answers, just your answers. And this will be kind of a very, I hope, insightful exercise for you. And as we're kind of finishing that up, and please continue to work on it, but I would like maybe 2 or 3 people to share with the group what their top 6 are.
I guess I'll go.
Yes, Roxanne, please share with us.
Yes. On the leading others, I enjoy fostering teamwork and empowering others. The other was analytical thinking and strategical thinking. And I like the integrity, personal credibility, and the flexibility and adaptability.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I assume that you've been in leadership roles?
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. I almost like to guess like what's your background based on your competencies, because leaders do oftentimes have the one or more of the thinking ones, which are the analytical thinking, conceptual, and strategic thinking. It's not unusual. It's not a must, but it's not unusual to see 1 or 2 or sometimes all 3 of those end up. That's a very powerful, and so you can begin to see just, if you just look at those 6, you can begin to see yourself being impactful in a group, being in fact impactful with individuals, being impactful and adding value within the organization. In a moment, we're going to figure out how to develop career stories around those. Who else would like to share their top 6?
I'll go, Danielle Robertson.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, self-confidence, fostering teamwork, empowering others, interpersonal understanding, persuasive communication, listening, and also being a strategic thinker. I am a social worker by profession, currently working with children with autism and their behaviors. However, I do lead a women's group, and I'm part of Toastmasters.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about your background and your model. And we did begin to see a little bit of overlap there, but also just some distinguishing competencies. Let's do maybe 1 or 2 more.
I'll go. This is Melissa.
Melissa.
Hi. From a leading others, it was empowering others and motivating and developing others. From the business side, it was strategic thinking, analytical thinking, and diagnostic information gathering. I know that's many. And then from a self-management, it was flexibility and adaptability, integrity, and personal credibility.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And if there's 1 more that would like to participate, and then we can move forward.
I can go.
Sam,
This is Karen Hall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sam, I know you unmuted your mic 3 or 4 times and you were like ready to go and you didn't want to.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. Karen.
Oh, okay. So I had fostering teamwork, analytical thinking, integrity and personal credibility, customer service orientation, diagnosis and info gathering, and the interpersonal skills.
Okay, thank you. You know, surprisingly, there's a little bit more overlap than I normally see when I ask for volunteers. But I would still argue, and I don't know how many there are on the call, but if we had the time to go around, there would be very few that had the same 6, and there would be very few, and normally I have people rank them in order, but there would be almost no exact duplicates if you were to rank those in order from 1 to 6. The point of that is that you just developed something that's really critical, and this is your competency model. And this is what you can take out to the marketplace. In addition to talking about your experience and the good things that you've done, you can begin to think about your resume through this schema, if you will, and you can begin to develop career stories through this same schema. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. And this is oftentimes people they'll see your resume and they get all excited. It begins to sparkle and they get so excited about the possibility of you being the one. And then when they talk to you, you're not telling them the right stories. And they kind of scratch their head and they say, oh, you know, it looked really good, but I'm not hearing what I want to hear. And oftentimes people aren't necessarily trained or skilled to properly unearth that information from you. And unfortunately, you may actually be the best fit, but if you're not sharing the right career stories with them, then the information unfortunately becomes irrelevant, if you will, and they pass and then they move on. And ultimately, I would argue that many times it's the person that tells the right stories that kind of crystallizes who they are and who they're going to be in that organization that get the job. And so I want to help you do that exactly. I want to keep you like really focused on sharing information. You only have an hour. Once that hour is gone, it is gone forever. So what can we do in an hour to ensure that we're sharing the most value that we can provide to this organization? All right, so let's see how we can go about doing that. Thank you for sharing with the group, and thank you for taking a few minutes to go through that exercise. So you just, again, created your own competency model. And this is just simply a group of competencies when bundled together that underscore your superior performance. And companies are also doing this. I've done this for, I don't know, half a dozen companies, is I'll look at a job description and figure out, okay, if we're gonna hire the best person, what are those behaviors? And so companies then often identify, and typically it's not necessarily individual positions, but it's kind of groups of positions that have maybe a common or a shared competency model. And so let me kind of share with you, if you were, this is kind of on the finance side, as a tax analyst or staff accountant, financial specialist, those might be grouped together, and a competency model might begin to look like diagnostic information gathering, analytical thinking, expertise, integrity, things of that nature. And then as you kind of move up the ladder, the corporate ladder, if you will, those competencies, yes. And then now as you move into more of a leadership role, more of a managerial role, you're managing performance, stress management, impact awareness, integrity, personal credibility, things of that nature. So really kind of depending on where you are within the organization, where you are within your career development, your competency model will evolve and change and grow, if you will. All right. So, and this is just an example. And here's just a few others. That illustration over on the left, those circles, is just like these are the competencies that are beginning to kind of hover around together that begin to establish and begin to define what this position kind of looks and feels like within the organization as far as behaviors. So here's one that's just based on sales and marketing, and it's going to be a different model, if you will, right? So for a sales rep or digital marketing associate or sales consultant, certainly we expect good listening, active listening skills, attention to communication, and they're going to have to move them from point A to point B. So persuasive communication. They have to have this kind of entrepreneurial spirit, kind of think like the owner, and then build these collaborative long-term relationships. And then again, as you move into a leadership role, very strong results orientation. And now you're developing others and you're managing performance, all right? So that's to say that each role within an organization or each group will have a different set. Your challenge, if you will, is to first understand yourself and then begin to understand within that organization, what is the model, whether it's stated formally or not, is really almost irrelevant, but what is the model that is known within that organization? And this is where if you can figure that out ahead of time, prepare for that ahead of time, and I'm going to show you how to do that, then you're going to be miles ahead of your competitors. And of course, they're not just interviewing you, right? There's going to be you and 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other people, right? So it's all about preparation against your strengths, but also understanding what is it that they're looking for. Very different way of approaching an interview, I hope. So how does this actually kind of work in the interview itself? Many companies then will first identify the competency model. And let's say that within that competency model, analytical thinking is one of the key points. And so it's like, okay, well, how do we figure out if this individual, and can we score this individual against analytical thinking, right? So they're going to come up with a menu, if you will, of 2 or 3 questions around analytical thinking. And if they're really good, they're going to throw out a question, and if you don't score well on it, they're going to give you one more opportunity. Sometimes they just give you one question and then move on because of the time frame. I always like to, if people struggle with a particular question, I like to give them a second opportunity. So here's just a couple of example questions that you might hear if they were trying to dig in and find out, to see and kind of test your level of analytical thinking. And formally, there could be a scoring guide to go with this as well, like a 4-point scale or a 5-point scale, potentially, right? And you'll notice that there's like an initial question, like let's take the second question, what material did you gather or review before making a decision? And you'll explain your answer, but notice that secondary question. And oftentimes within a behavioral interview, they may not cover as broad a base of questions, but the questions that they're going to ask, they're going to go deeper. They're going to go deeper. And it's like peeling the onion. They really want to understand within analytical thinking, where are you? And they may give you a real world example. If this was presented to you, tell me how you would think through it. So it's all about storytelling, either a story from your past, or they're going to create a situation and have you tell a story about that. So we're going to learn a little bit about how to tell stories in just a moment. So the 2 key components then of a behavioral interview is it's going to be that initial question, and then very, very important, and this is where you really need to pay attention, is to any secondary, what I call secondary probing questions. As they ask this, oftentimes the initial question, it's difficult sometimes to figure out what is the competency, and this is a question you should be constantly kind of thinking about, is because they're not going to say, okay, candidate, okay, Karen Hall, I'm going to ask you a question on analytical thinking. They're not going to give you that hint. You're just going to ask the question. But as they ask the question, you need to kind of be thinking, what is the competency that I can identify that goes with that question? And normally your answer is going to be rather, I won't say vague, but it's going to be rather brief, maybe would be a better term. And we hope that you're saying something that's going to kind of bait them. And that secondary probing question is so important. You really need to pay attention because it's going to guide you in what is really valuable. And I would argue that the answer to that probing secondary question is much more relevant than your first answer, right? So really pay attention, and that's when you can really kind of nail it. Or if they ask a 3rd or 4th question, that's telling you that they're really interested in what you're saying if they go deep. You want them to go deep. So you have to be a really good time manager and be careful how you answer the initial question. I'll get to that in just a moment. All right. So expect an initial, tell me about a time, or here's a scenario, take me through how you would think through it, and then watch for those probing secondary questions. What have you learned is a good one. Okay. Oh, this is REA members. Okay. This was actually a presentation to a different group. But here's the challenge to this group today is we have already defined your own competency model. And if you haven't put them in ranked order, I want to encourage you to put them in rank order from 1 to 6. And then if you're saying, hey, Mitch, these are my top 6, I'm going to encourage you to just do a sanity check on your resume. Do your competencies actually show up anywhere? And there's formal ways of doing it and informal ways of doing it. But I would argue that that the resume, if you're saying this is who you are, that those need to show up. And then I also want to now encourage you, and we're gonna do this, is to figure out what is the competency model for a specific job description. And we're going to really kind of reverse engineer. We're going to deconstruct a job description and pull out of it those competencies. Now, wouldn't that be interesting to kind of get it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz at the end. You get to pull the curtain back and kind of see what's really going on within that organization. All right. So I think it was Toto that pulled the curtain back. So you can be that Toto that pulls the curtain back and kind of really see behind the scenes. And then we're going to build career stories, or I call them memory triggers, build memory triggers to support your competencies. So you're like just attacking this thing from all sides around this concept, the schema, if you will, of competencies. Kind of just a really different one. And then I'm going to just kind of interject right here. Today, we're at the top here, identification of your competencies. Okay, check, we've done that. Job description review, we're about to hit that, and then we're gonna go into memory triggers, and that's our talk today. I wanna, though, encourage you, if I can get you kind of tied into a competency system, how you can use competencies for performance management of both yourself and the team. You can actually develop career pathing and succession planning around competencies as well. So it's really just kind of this really neat system that's not all that complex, right? It took you just a few minutes to figure out your own competencies. So I wanted to share with you, this is from some real people that I've had an opportunity to work with, and these were their competencies that were actually built in now to their this was their top 6, if you will, and this is how they were actually built in and dropped in to the top half of the first page of the resume. So this would be one way that you could use your competencies to highlight your expertise on the resume. That's one way of doing it, and you can begin to see, you know, how clear this is. And if you were the hiring manager, like, wow, in just like, you know, 10 or 15 seconds, you begin to crystallize and see who this person is and the value that they're bringing to the organization. Another way of doing it, and this was for another individual that I worked with, was it was more in buckets. It was more like, how do I take this information across different groupings, if you will? And so this is yet another way of dropping competencies into the resume, is doing it kind of in groups like this, just a different, that's to say that you can be as creative as you want to. I wanted to share with you, going back to now kind of the next part of the exercise that I want to encourage you to do as you look at job descriptions, the ones that maybe you're interviewing for, or the ones that you're interested in, is begin, and this is a real job description, and so you want to, you know, do a check mark against the requirements. Do you have the right experience and the right skills, whatever that might be? And then once you kind of check that off, that like, yeah, I can do this job, then the next part is, what are the behaviors and activities that are literally in that job description? So this is when you begin to deconstruct that job description. And I've highlighted in red some of the activities, or some of the action items, or some of the behaviors from this particular job description, all right? And so this took maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. It was just copy and paste the job description and begin to analyze it. What happens, I'm convinced, because I've done this many times with many people, is that as you begin to engage in this job description, you literally begin to see this thing from a different perspective. You begin to see it from the perspective of the hiring manager, and you become much more much more acquainted, if you will, with what's really going on in the job description. Okay, so this is kind of part 1A, if you will, of how to begin to deconstruct the job description. The next part, so it's just simply highlighting what are the activities and behaviors in the job description. And it it's like this intense juice now that you're drinking, right? You're beginning to really see the core of what's going on in this job description. The next thing you need to do is we're going to assign competencies. And we want to do it in a kind of a logical way that doesn't feel overwhelming. So what we want to do is we want to think about 3 buckets that we're going to route. Let me go back. We're going to route these activities and these behaviors into 3 buckets. And so I've chosen strategic because oftentimes, especially for those that are a leader, there's going to be a strategic element. And if there's a strategic element, there's a tactical element. And almost in any job description, you're going to find elements of communication. Your bucket might be different than this, but this is the one I like to teach off of. So as we go through the job description that you just saw a while ago, there'll be more under strategic, but these are just 2 of the ones that we can route under strategic, provide HR input and interpret and drive action planning. Those are kind of strategic types of thinking. Under tactical, we're actually now implementing a performance evaluation plan and we're managing a budget. Under communication, we're driving effective leadership, communication initiatives, things of that nature. So now we begin to take these behaviors, take these activities and group them in buckets: strategic, tactical, communication. Pretty easy to do. The next thing is, now that we have this, we're going to go to the next level of analytical thinking. We're going to begin to assign competencies. The question you should ask is, what are the competencies that I can bundle together that would create, key term here, that would create superior performance? As I think about providing HR input related to strategy and planning, what are the competencies I want to assign to that? A couple of guidelines here. Certainly we need at least 1 competency, but we don't really want to go more than 3, maybe 4. Otherwise it gets a little out of hand. And so for this particular competency, I feel that it was strategic thinking, conceptual thinking, information gathering, and persuasive communication. And as we go down, you begin to see that with each item, there's going to be a related competency model. And you can see that sometimes they overlap, but oftentimes they're different. And this is really kind of a fun exercise. Like, wow, I'm really kind of getting into this idea of competencies. And then you just go down and just, again, 1, 2, 3, or 4, no more, competency to each behavior, each activity. And now you have done yourself really an incredible favor by truly understanding what are the competencies. And now we're going to kind of take it to the next level and do an analysis of what we just learned. This is kind of the hard work. And now we're about to look at, we're going to do a kind of an overview now and figure out what to do with this information. Okay, so let's say that we have identified our top 6 competencies, and this is actually mine, with this particular job description. And on the job description that we just looked at, strategic thinking showed up 11 times. Managing performance showed up 9 times. Interpersonal understanding and impact awareness showed up 8 times. Diagnostic information, 7, and the list goes down. So as I think about my own model, and then as I think about this particular position, I actually get kind of excited because there's 2 in there that match my top 6. And there's some other ones in there that I can also create stories around that I also feel like I'm pretty good at. But my top 6, the ones that make me that superior performer, they can actually leverage 2 of those, right? And strategic thinking, which is in my top 6, is their number 1 competency. And so it does 2 things. There's a little bit of a sanity check in how well qualified am I? What is the match? The other thing is, it's like, this is their North Compass. If I was preparing for this particular interview, it's like, okay, I need to be telling stories around strategic thinking. I need to be telling stories around managing performance and interpersonal understanding. It really, again, it gives you a clue of what they're going to be talking about in the interview. Jeff mentioned the book Interview RX. In that book, every time I use the word relevant, it's italicized. I have found in interviewing over 5,000 people in person, one of the most common errors is that they're sharing information that's relevant to them, but not necessarily to the party across the desk. This will help you be prepared and give you a better chance. It's really hard to share relevant information for a full hour, but if you can do it 80% of the time, wouldn't that be better than 60% or 30% or 20%, right? So this is the North Compass. This is what you need to focus in on as you think about the career stories that you're going to be sharing. All right, so I hope this is really useful. And that whole exercise may have taken, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes, 30 minutes. It's a little bit rough the first time because you don't know what you're doing. The second time, a little bit easier. And by the third time, you can actually teach it to someone else. I literally did it 3 times before I wrote about it, right? So it's not rocket science. It's just a very simple 1, 2, 3 process. Then the next area I wanted to touch on are memory triggers, and these are your career stories. And they're going to be competency-based. And so here's the challenge. We're going to build memory triggers against your competency model, right? You know your top 6, and so we're going to build competency models. And then we're also going to secondarily build competency stories, memory triggers around the job description. And now you're going to be set for that interview. You'll know exactly what to talk about, okay? And then I'm going to encourage you to outline your career stories, put them all on one page, and then practice those, but don't memorize them. You want to come across as if you were telling them for the first time. And then this is probably something that you've learned many, many times. Sometimes it goes by CAR or STAR or SAR, and it's all really the same thing, but I'm going to introduce it as the iCar, kind of like an iPhone. And so how do we develop a memory trigger or a career story? And this is so important. Within that hour, I'm going to encourage you to develop 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 1-minute stories, 1-minute stories. Again, it's not so much your initial answer, but it's going to be your secondary answers that are going to be more important. So you want to get past that initial question very, very quickly. All right. So the little I there is, what is the imagined interview question? And I suspect that you know pretty much what you're going to be asked, right? There's going to be a set of questions coming your way, and then you can also look at the competency model around the job description and figure out what are the competencies and what are some of those questions going to be, right? So you're really almost like preparing the interview questions for the hiring manager. And so just imagine an interview question around, tell me about a difficult time where a commitment looked like it was going to be compromised. How did you get involved, and how did you help resolve it? So even there, you can begin to understand what are the competencies behind that. Why are they asking me this question? I suspect it has to do with they have had some failed projects, right? So what is it about me? What is it about my experience? What can I share that's actually going to be relevant to them, right? How can I crystallize my value and who I am?
Pop up.
All right, Mitch is frozen here, so hopefully he'll pop back in just a second. Come on, Mitch.
Been cutting out in between a lot. I don't know if anyone else had that experience.
I've been bounced off twice.
I will say this is a really good topic, Jeff. Thanks for
It is. It is really good.
Thank
It's
you.
a great topic, a great approach, very different.
All right, let me text Mitch and see if I can get hold of him here. Oh, he's totally dropped off. M-I-T-C-H. Oh, I don't even have his cell phone number. Let me look up here. Please talk among yourselves for a second.
It looks like he's back down there. He's just muted. I see him.
Yeah, no, I think he, oh, let's see here. Hello, Mitch. Hello, Mitch.
Yes, here I am.
All right, you're back? Okay. Yeah,
Yay.
you totally froze up and you have your screen's not, there you go.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, can everyone see me again?
Yep, you're good to go.
Oops. Let's see. Let me just go down. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the ICAR model, if you will, and the C is simply for circumstance. So you're very quickly and only, and this is the discipline part of the interview, and some of you like to, and it gets you in trouble every time, like expand. You need to compress, 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 compress into, in only 2 to 4 sentences, and please follow this guideline. Describe the situation or the goal, right? And so here we have someone describing this little 10-week project and how the department was, 16% off, and they were missing their targets. And by the way, it was a $5 million agreement, and oh, by the way, it was for a top-tier client, right? So this is kind of a serious issue that this particular person, and you can begin and see it doesn't take much, right? It doesn't take much to explain the circumstance. And then we're going to move on through, and now we're going to do an action with no more, and the A is for action, no more than 3 bullet points, no more than 3, please, no more than 3. And what is it specifically that you did? Well, I called together a meeting for the project team, and we got the department heads and even a couple of the executive stakeholders together. We figured out a new timeline, what were the key milestones, and then we all took a commitment to hit these milestones. And it was great because we were developing teamwork and being responsible parties. And then as a department head, I actually had to figure out, separate from that, a key communication plan back to the key stakeholders at the client side, just to make sure that everything was kind of tracking forward. All right. So, and so this isn't much, right? It's just what were the circumstances? Briefly. We have a 60-second time window. What were the actions? And then ultimately, what were the results? And you want to mention 2, no more than 3 key results. And if you can be specific, then you're really, it's like hitting the nail on the head. If you say that things were more efficient or you saved the company money, that's fuzzy math to me, right? Fuzzy math, remember that term? And the mind begins to wonder, like, I don't know what that means. But if you were able to target something more like 95% of the product on time and the balance within 3 days, again, what you're trying to do is crystallize who you are. If you use fuzzy words, they can't crystallize, and they have to do that in order to see you being successful in their organization, right? So it's very succinct, very brief, very impactful statements. So you have the circumstance or situation, if you like. You have the action, and then you results. And all of this should take about 60 seconds. And so here are the key results. Yes, the team worked hard. Oh, yes, we had to put in a few additional hours, and we had to coordinate more hand in hand with operations and logistics, but we were able to kick this thing out and deliver 95% of it on time, which met the client's immediate need, and that communication strategy I was mentioning actually strengthened our relationship at the highest level. But I also saw internally we were stronger as team and cross-functional. And then you can have just kind of a nice kind of wrap up sentence to know that you're finishing your conversation, and this is, I love this from an HR perspective, when you hit on a cultural value that you've underscored. Hardly anyone does this. And if you're talking to HR, you can pull a cultural value that, and you'll watch their eyes light up, because that's what we're all about. But it was rewarding to see everyone step up and embrace one of our cultural values, embrace quality and go the distance, right? So that's a nice little story. And this one, actually, if I timed it, it took, I think, 72 seconds as I ran through it once or twice, right? So let 60 seconds be your target. If you run over a few seconds, that's fine. But if you're more than 75 seconds, I would say, let's go back and edit, compress it down. That is your initial answer to the question. Okay, now through that answer, and I know we got interrupted there, but through that answer, what, and this, I want to open it back up, what competencies were you beginning to see? What competencies were beginning to bubble up in that 60-second, 72-second conversation?
This is Danielle, entrepreneurial orientation.
Yes. What else?
Fostering teamwork.
Yes. What else?
Analytical thinking.
Go ahead.
Results orientation.
Absolutely. Managing performance might be another. Empowering others might be another one.
Customer
Right?
service.
Mm-hmm. Directiveness and assertiveness, right? So this is the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing about competency model stories is that, yes, I've introduced them as these individual items. The fact of the matter is, within a minute, it's so easy to begin to bubble up 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 competencies. And in this particular, so this took 72 seconds, and under leading others, there was managing performance, fostering teamwork, communication, problem resolution, achieving results. So you begin to see this whole litany of competencies that we didn't like go deep down. We didn't do that, but we began to introduce them, not formally, but through our stories, all right? And this is the incredible strength of creating a story that captures and encapsulates these competencies. So ultimately, in a minute, 72 seconds to be exact, we surfaced 14 competencies, 14 competencies. Now, that manager or that team is going to get excited about something you just said, right? And now they're beginning to see you being successful at the very least. But the idea is to understand, gosh, of these 14, as a candidate, I kind of wonder which ones they're really interested in. And this is watch for that second probing question, okay? They're going to guide you, of the 14, they're going to guide you and tell you what's really important. Now you can spend a little bit more time, not too much, but a little bit more time sharing with them another story, because now you know that's important. In your initial answer to the question, it's pretty vague, and it's like trying to hit a target if you're throwing a dart like you're 30 feet away, right? Chances are good you're going to miss it. That's why you want to get through that initial answer really, really quickly, 72 seconds. Let them ask another question, spend a little bit more time. If there's a third or fourth question, you know, as they go down into the weeds, go down into the weeds with them, but let them guide you down there. That when I say down in the weeds, that's all that detail that makes you that expert. They may want to know more about, maybe they have really dysfunctional teams. Well, tell me more about teamwork. How do you go about doing that? You know, from an HR perspective, I would be asking those questions. Tell me about results orientation. We're a very results-oriented company. How did you figure that out? How do you contribute to that? What's the strategy behind that? When you know when you're not hitting the target, right? All of those are these secondary questions that will guide you to what to share next. And don't share it until they ask it, right? In the interview, a lot of candidates think, I gotta share because I gotta convince them how good I am. Yes, you do, but you have to do it in a disciplined, structured, coherent, concise manner that makes sense, not to you, because you are who you are and you get to live with yourself later, but you have to do it for them, The best way I know how to do that is go back, figure out who you are, figure out your strengths, and figure out the competencies that are needed for that role and stay focused on those. Okay, so best practices. So I'm going to encourage you to outline your memory triggers, just like the old, when you're in school, Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3. And then A is like maybe the 1 is the circumstance. And then under that, what are the 2 or 3 sentences you're going to say? Just outline it. And then, so outline your own, and then outline memory triggers for the specific job based on the competency models you're finding within that. And then simply outline it in, 8 or 10 point type, put that on one piece of paper, and literally you have your whole interview right there. You have all of your career stories on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. That's it. I can't think of a better way to be prepared. And then you can actually take that with you, and if you need to look down from time to time, there's your stories. If it's a phone interview, as was talked about earlier, if there's virtual, you have all of your stories right in front of you. And you can even target what the competencies are around those stories, right? You're gonna ace the interview. All right, and then edit your stories. Please, please, please keep them concise. Practice, don't memorize. And then keep in mind that 7% of your speaking is only understanding your words. The other 93%, so important, is your attitude, your body language, and that's what they're looking for. They want someone with passion coming in. All right. So you have to kind of imagine what the interview questions are going to be, and also what might those follow-up questions be based on the competencies that you found. It's just such a great way to prepare yourself. So much of the interview is just simply my confidence that I can get through this hour. Please God, help me get through this hour. And it's all about preparation. Please do not shoot from the hip. I've seen that probably 80% of the time, 90% of the time, that's what people do. You need to stand out.
I just have a quick question about the stories.
Yes.
I've really struggled and am struggling to get my stories down to 60 to 75 seconds.
Yep.
It seems really difficult, based on the slides that you've presented and the content. It seems really difficult to work through that amount of content in 60 to 75 seconds without sounding like you're reading something or just rambling on. And so, I want it to be more conversational as my explanation, but to cover that amount of content just seems like really difficult. And I've done a lot of practicing and trying to condense it, but I'm having a hard time really getting it below a couple minutes.
Okay, I've got an idea for you. So this is a specific exercise for you, but of course anyone would be able to participate. Here's what I'd like for you to do. And this is what I had to do, so I know it can be done. So many years back, I was asked to do 3-minute talks on KERA radio. And a 3-minute talk is between 300 and 305 words, okay? So what I'd like for you to do specifically is go ahead and just type out your answer. Type out your answer. And this is what I would say. As you begin to think through, just kind of type it out and do a word count and see where you are, okay? When I was doing these 3-minute talks, and they were around interviewing and salary negotiations and things of that nature, the first time I did that, I came up with like 1,198 words. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not even close, right? I'm not even close. And so the second pass was about, 850 words. And I thought, my gosh, what is it that I'm going to cut? So I kept going and I kept going. And surprisingly, once I got it down to 300 and it was about 306 words, I was amazed that the true content, it was all there. It was all there. As far as the core, what I really, really wanted to say. And I was just amazed. And that was such a learning moment for me. So I want to encourage you to just type it out. This would be my response. And then whatever that is, and then narrow it back to about whatever a minute is. I guess that would be about 100 words to 130 words, right? And just work at it and then practice that. And you'll train yourself, as I had to train myself, to be more concise. And it's not wrong to be conversational. The problem that we all have is that we don't have much time. We don't have much time. And we only have one opportunity to crystallize who we are. We have to be really good time managers because you want to ask questions. And there's a whole other strategy around asking questions and answering those questions and marrying back what they need. But if you're too lengthy in your answers, you are giving away valuable, valuable time that could be meaningful to reflect back, again, relevant information. So I appreciate the challenge that I'm putting before you, but I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, and I'm going to ask you to try that and see how it works for you, okay? Thank you so much. I appreciate your transparency, your honesty, and Mitch, you know, I'm really going to struggle with this. And this system is a little bit different, but I would just encourage you to at least try it, and for many, it's going to work. So thank you. So let me move on. Let me move on here. So I mentioned that there was this whole system. So competencies is kind of the gift that keeps on giving. We talked a little bit about the interview, about the resume, and you can certainly use it in the cover letter, and you can use it so creatively in the cover letter. But if you're going to write a cover letter, and I might suggest you do that, even though probably 95% never gets seen, but if you write one, what are you going to write about? I would suggest about the competencies that you have found in their job, right? Because it's relevant information. And you can also, in the interview, kind of note, okay, you know, I went into the interview thinking these were the 5 competencies they were looking for, but honestly, it boiled down to just these 2. And so in my thank you note, my thank you email, I'm going to mention just a word, like it might be, you know, it might be, Chuck, you know, thanks so much for your time today. I enjoyed learning more about the organization. Specifically, I wanted to highlight my 13 years in customer service and the excellence in the programs I was able to develop to help move the company forward with their retention of clients. You know, something like that, right? So you want to target your thank you note and mention something specific, like the thing, hit that nail on the head that's going to bring the most value, right? So this is like it's like a memory trigger part B. You're like, you gave them the memory trigger during the interview, but now it's like, you know, oh, by the way, remember what I said, right? And then once hired, what can you do with the competencies? Well, it's like, okay, I think I've got the competency model figured out for this role based on my deconstruction of the job description, based on my interview. And in my first 90 days, I am really going to exhibit. I'm going to make sure those competencies get out there, right? Because they've told me these are the competencies that are important, not just for success, but for superior success. And by God, that's who I am, right? And then you can begin to, especially if you're leading people and you're hiring people, you can develop your own competency models and build those into the job descriptions. And call me and I'll help you with it, or work with your HR person. And then you can also then develop these behavioral interviews. And so you're going to begin to identify the best candidates based on, you know, these are the competencies we want. Well, that's great. How do you figure that out? Through the interview. And then you can also set goals. Maybe customer service orientation is not your cup of tea, but you really need to become more proficient. So over the really focus on, and this is the mindset. This is how I'm going to show up every day to ensure that maybe I won't be the very best person, but by God, I'm going to become competent in this to the level that it's not going to drag my career. And then you can certainly, within the performance review process, I love to do this, is to drop in 2 things. One are the company values and score people against the company values, but also score people against the competency model for that position, right? That makes, from the HR perspective, that makes a lot of sense. And then you can do some career pathing as well. And I wanted to show you just very quickly, this is And this was a great recruiting model. And this is, we did one for each department, and it's showing that my internet connection is unstable. I hope it doesn't go out. So this is marketing and where they can go and what are the competency models as they begin to go up and through the organization. And it was such a great way to get people excited about not just their job, but their role and their commitment to the organization. So it really drives, competency models can actually drive and enhance engagement with especially new employees, all right? And there's a whole system behind it, how to, you know, get to a senior level or to a manager level or down into sales operation. There was a whole, we had to figure out a system to move people up and down and through the organization. But this was just one of the slides that we used. We had one for each department. Very interesting. So here we go again. Today we've identified your own competencies. We've looked at job descriptions and how to deconstruct those. We've built career stories, memory triggers to highlight your competencies, to highlight the competencies that you found in the job description. And again, there's other parts of the system that once you land that you can, you know, grapple with and continue to use competencies. So it's this kind of this whole integrated system. And so what's your ROI? So let's see, you know, hopefully just knowing your top 6 will give you greater self-awareness of what your strengths are. And hopefully this whole system, if you will, is really systematic. So now you have this systematic process for looking at yourself, looking at job descriptions and deconstructing them. And then as we kind of move down, you have the ability to build your career stories, your memory triggers. And those are going to be relevant now because they're aligned to their needs. They're aligned to their competencies. And you're able to articulate and mirror and kind of really be on the same train, right? Be on the same bus as they are. I mean, how many interviews do you kind of walk away from going, you know, I don't know how well I did. It seemed like I was here and they were there, and, you know, our paths just didn't even cross. And I think through this system, I'll call it, it's going to give you a better chance. There's no guarantees, but a better chance of being aligned with what they're looking for. And then once on board, you have a complete system to continue to use. And then ultimately, especially as a leader, you'll be more present, more aligned, and more engaged. All right. So that's the ROI on that. And that is it. So thank you for allowing me to present. And I moved through pretty darn quickly. I did want to leave my contact information if I can, you know, assist on a more personal issue. But we can, Jeff, if we have time, we can certainly open it up to a little Q&A.
Yeah, we have time. So if anybody has questions, please either just raise your hand or go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I've got a question about the competency identification. You know, when you went through there, you said, find the 6 competencies that you think apply to you, but that's, you know, that's my perception of my competencies. And there's a lot of tests and assessment of personality styles and so forth. Are there formal tests and assessments to help me crystallize those competencies that apply to me more than just my perception of what they are?
Yeah, well, you know, there's so many like different models out there. I would say probably if you search there are, but let me share with you how I have worked with people to kind of figure that out, because I think what you're talking about is more like a 360, right? More like a 360. And so I can think of, if you remember Blockbuster from, you know, decades past, I was actually working with one of the executives in engineering, VP of engineering, that was transitioning out. And we were going through this competency exercise, and he was kind of like you, like Mitch, I don't really know, but this is what I think, but is there a better way? Leaders, and then 2 of his peer leaders, and then 2 people that reported into him. And so it's like a 360, if you will. So we got their input. And amazingly, his own self-reflection was honestly pretty close, but we did make a few changes. So it could be like even a spouse, right? A spouse knows you pretty well, maybe not in a working environment, but you don't give them your answers. Just say, you know, honey, or, you know, dear, or whatever, you know, help me out here. This is an interesting exercise. I want to get your perspective. But I would say at least, you know, check with 1 or 2 at a minimum, kind of close colleagues. Say, this is really important to me. Could you help me? You know, how do you see me? what you hit on is so important, is that our vision is whatever that is, 90, I don't know, 120 degrees, which leaves about 240 degrees of our blind spots. So we all have these significant blind spots. And we have to appreciate and have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable to go out and ask others to help us, right? And when you ask for their feedback, you might say, well, tell me why you say that. And like if they say, well, you know, you're an analytical thinker, well, why do you say that? And that might actually begin to be an outline for a story that you can use to prepare for your interview. So short, I guess the short answer to that would be engage others and see if what you think about yourself is true.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Again,
Esther, you had a question. Esther, would you like to say? Well, her question was, at what stage of the job application process should we use competency reviews and analysis? And do recruiters use this type of review on a resume?
Well, let's see. I mean, I would say, as you know, what I kind of do a sanity check. If there's really a position that I think I'm really interested in, I will go ahead and do like a quick competency check on that background. The reason is I do like to write cover letters, and so I'll be prepared to write a cover letter. And I have a very specific model. It's called the modified T cover letter. But regardless, it's a cover letter that is somewhat skills based and somewhat it's like a grid of what they're looking for versus what you have. But then there's also a competency section. So it's pretty much like saying, yeah, I can do the job, and by the way, this is how I can add value. So it's a very powerful one-page cover letter that really does their work for them. It helps them screen you in versus their mindset, which is usually to what? Screen you out, right? So it gives you every opportunity to be screened in. So I would say, as far as your preparation, if you want to go to the trouble and the discipline of writing a cover letter, I would go ahead and do that, you know, pretty quickly. And certainly, if you don't do it at that level, you'll want to do it before the phone screen and be prepared. Did I answer that in full, or was there another part of another question?
No, I think that got it.
Okay.
Melissa asked, in the example, there were two areas of competency overlaps initially. Would this imply that the role might not be a good fit?
Yes, thank you for asking. Quite possibly. If and this is where you want to do that sanity check. If it's like, you know, the competencies that are showing up are like not in your wheelhouse, then you could question whether you could be successful in this particular organization. And then you can make a decision, you know, do you want to kind of engage with this organization or not? But that is, and you know, within, just speaking personally, within the HR field, people view HR quite differently. And I came at it from, you know, left field. I am not your typical, I did not grow up through the HR field at all. I came at it quite, really, again, from left field. And so my particular style and the value that I add to organizations is not always appreciated. And in fact, it takes a smaller to mid-sized company with some very specific needs before they hire me. And I went through a lot of kind of pain and consternation trying to figure that out. But this will help you, again, identify who you are, help identify them, and then you can see if you want to date them or not. But yes, I think you can actually begin to screen yourself in and screen yourself out of positions by using this model. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I have another question, and thank you for that answer. My other question is, in one of your slides, you talked about as one moves throughout the organization, the competency model may change, which was great. Thank you for sharing that. Would you be able to gather most of that information from the job description so that you can craft your stories accordingly? In other words, when you go from, you know, managing a team to directing a team as a director or a VP, I think the language might change and the competencies change.
Absolutely, yes. So what I get now, thank you for asking. This is so important. That is such a fantastic question. Okay, so I gave you like, these are the job groups, and here's the model that goes with it, right? So the idea is that different levels of positions have different competencies. Okay, so let's say that you're hired, it doesn't matter. Let's say that you're hired as a manager over a department of 3, right? And so as that manager, you're going to exercise and build and refine a certain level of competencies. Okay, now as you look at your boss, whoever that might be, you have to figure out what is the competency model for that role, right? And do kind of an analysis. But here's my goal for you, is in your first 12 to 18 months, add the value, add all the value that you can to that organization through that competency model. Simultaneously, at about 12 months, begin to think about what is the model for where I want to go. And maybe it's up or maybe it's over, not quite sure, but wherever you want to go in that organization, begin to think through and analyze what that competency model looks like. Then begin to exhibit those competencies if they are in fact different, so that when that position opens, it becomes quite obvious who the best fit is, because you're already exhibiting behaviors that lead to what? Superior performance, right? And so you're giving yourself every opportunity to move up, across, wherever you want to within that organization.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else? No? Okay. All right. Well, Mitch, I want to thank you very much for your time. Great information. He has contact information up there, and you're welcome to go back and look at that. Let's see here. If you're not receiving emails from the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, please, if you're on Zoom, please enter your information in the chat box. If on Facebook you'd like to send me an email, you may do so at txjmoris@yahoo.com. Next Friday, our speaker is going to talk about fireproofing your future, protecting yourself against getting burned in a job search by taking the wrong job. This is a sort of very interesting process. This person got burned a couple of times. He took a job and realized it really wasn't for him. So, how to make sure that you're accepting a job that is something that will work out for you. If you have not put in your information in the chat box and we don't have your name, phone number, email address, position you're looking for, 2 or 3 target companies, please go ahead and do that. That way, I will put that out in an email this afternoon to everybody. Upcoming programming that we have going on starting next Tuesday. Next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Every Tuesday we do LinkedIn Tuesdays. Our speaker is Ruth Lipsky next week. She's going to talk about LinkedIn special features for job seekers. Tuesday at 3 o'clock will be session number 5 of the Frisco Career Transition Workshop. I'll be presenting networking and building relationships. On Wednesday, interviewing Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, be session number 11 of 13 on targeting companies, information interviews, and networking. And then on Thursday, every Thursday, we do an effective resume class. So if you'd like to find out, what your resume should look like, every week we add some new information, some different information there, just to get your resume up and going. That would be, join us on Thursday. This session has been recorded, will be recorded. It will be up on the Career USA YouTube channel a little bit in a couple hours. It is currently on the Career DFW Facebook page. We can go back and you can watch it. So if you want to see Mitch's presentation over and over and over again and go back and see things, you can go back and do that on either one of these channels. If you go to Facebook, please follow us on Facebook. That way, every time we go live, you'll know about it. Your phone will give a little buzz and you'll say we're currently live. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get an email every time we publish a new video up there. But there's no cost to get to either one of them. You don't have to sign up for either one. If you go to the YouTube channel, it looks something like this. It's Career USA. If you click on the playlist feature, it will pop up all the different playlists that I have put together for everybody. And then if you just go to North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group and click on View Full Playlist, you will see all the speakers that have spoken here, and you can go back and review anything you'd like to do. So thank you very much for joining us. Mitch, thank you very much. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody next week sometime. Yes, Sam, you got a question? Are you waving goodbye? Waving goodbye, Sam. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.